Welcome to Light on Yoga, Living the Practice. This is a series from IY UK exploring the influence of light on yoga by BKS Iyengar. We are celebrating over 60 years since its publication, and this book continues to shape how yoga is practiced and taught around the world. In this series, we're speaking with teachers to hear their personal stories. And today, Sarah and I are speaking with John Ferrabee. John has been collecting rare and out-of-print Iyengar yoga books since 1990 and has built an extraordinary collection of first editions from around the world, including some of the earliest copies of Light on Yoga published in the UK and the United States. In this conversation, we will explore John's journey into yoga, his fascination with collecting books, the story behind the first edition of Light on Yoga, and why this remarkable publication continues to inspire practitioners more than 60 years after it first arrived. So thank you for being with us today, John.
Thank you.
I was wondering, to begin with, if you want to share a little bit about how you got into yoga, how you found Iyengar yoga, I think is always interesting for people to hear.
It started in the early mid-80s, where I was involved in quite a life-threatening car accident. And I had a physio program. And then I discovered some yoga stretches that I thought were a lot more helpful for me. And that was in my local town of Cheltenham in Gloucestershire. I had met my current teacher, and this is probably late 80s now, a lady called Judy Sweeting, is still teaching today. It started from there and blossomed from, I'd say, 1989.
I'm just going to share the picture that you shared with me doing your Shirshasana.
Yeah, I'm the one with the bent legs at the front on the right. Yeah. I mean, this sort of, what you don't see when you go to India, if you've never had it, is the intensity of the heat. It's nothing that you can really describe. Well, imagine you open the oven door and the heat just comes out. It's a bit like that, and doing asanas in it. That's my first experience. It was in extreme heat, but yeah, very, well, every time I go, I come back, think I've actually gone back a step, and the more times I go, the less I know about it.
And you've got one of the most extensive collections of probably Iyengar yoga books alongside collections of Light on Yoga editions. What was the first ever yoga book that you acquired?
My first ever yoga book was one by Mira Mehta called Yoga the Iyengar Way, which is still very current and still on the shelves today.
When did you first get your copy of Light on Yoga?
Light on Yoga quickly followed with all of the Iyengar's books as well. So that's Gita Ji and Prasanji as well. Early days, in the early 90s, I went to Pune, where they've got an amazing bookshop and library. 2 different rooms, one where you can do research on various aspects of yoga, and then in the bookshop, obviously, where you go and buy all the current publications. But actually, my very first Iyengar Light on Yoga came from a very good friend of mine in northwest Australia called Broome, where I was given the book as a gift. And that was my actually first introduction of that book. From there on, I had bought different copies of it, and eventually got to the hardbacks, which were very resilient, because I found some of the softbacks that kept falling apart as their workbooks.
And so when did you start collecting? So when you're talking about all the hardbacks, was that once you'd started collecting books?
Yeah, I did actually go to some book auctions. The very first one was a book auction where Mr. Menuhin's books, well, his estate was being auctioned. And in there was Gita's book. And that was the very first edition of the one I'm holding up there, which is known to everybody really. It's called A Gem for Women. And it's the Allied books, and that's the Indian version of it there. And inside there were some lovely letters that Mr. Iyengar had written to Mr. Menuhin and his wife, um, asking if he could read Gita's book and reply and give his thoughts and feelings on it, which was nice.
And how did you end up interested in going to that auction?
Um, Good question. I've been to Pune, and I'd seen this lovely watch in the cabinet as you go in. This beautiful, beautiful watch that was given to Mr. Iyengar, BKS Iyengar, by Yehudi Menuhin. I thought, God, what a lovely, amazing gift. And I just sort of looking around this cabinet, and it had a hardback in there, it had the watch, and so all sort of little Mr. Iyengar's props that he used to use over the years, just as a memorability. And it just caught my eye, and I just sort of start researching. There was a hardback in the library, and I just started really there. Really, I mean, I didn't come out to be a book collector. It's just happened really over the years. The quality of the first edition Live on Yodas are pretty much, I mean, amazingly bound, um, and they're all in really good condition, because of the quality of the print, quality of the binding, and just the quality of work that went on in those days. So that's a 1966 Schocken book. That's a 1965 UK. Um, yeah, 66 started, and that was another publishing company bought the rights, and that was called Schocken Books. These are early 70s, and these took over from uh, these ones here. So we have the 60s ones, and then we had the 70s ones. I think they might have been on a bit of a cost cutting exercise, because over the years they got a bit smaller and a bit thinner. This is the very first edition. These are quite rare. I mean, there was probably 1,000 printed, but I mean, that's worldwide. So, I mean, it was such a small print run, very difficult to find. And their characteristic trait is that blue stripe there. It's called a blue back. Yeah, like that. And the pictures are very clear. Mm. Uh, Whether that, of course, the moment you get it in your hand, it's something different and something special. They have a blue cover, blue boards, and a blue top. And that's a 1965 edition, that one. And that's by the Allen and George Allen and Unwin. Well, it was an American edition. That's 1966, and that's by a publishing company called Schocken Books. Again, good quality photographs, not quite like the 65 one there. And then it went to 1972, which is the same, but very, very slight. I mean, exactly the same content, a little more printed now. And they go from 72, 68, 70, 72, and then the little white ones kicked in then. So there was a small gap of those, and then these were pretty mainstream, really. But this is a hardback one. They did these in softback and hardback. Pretty robust books. They last. And these are a good introduction with all of the photographs that are at the back for checking out the sequences, etc.
So when did the photos move from the back of the book to intertwined with the instructions to get in and out of the asana?
Yeah. Well, then I think all of the publishers were on the bandwagon. And so we start to have mandala books, this one. And then we have, this was another Orson's book. This was quite popular. And these are ones where you have the text, which is a little more modern, where you had then the asana photograph and then techniques and the effects, benefits, etc. And that went there. And the publisher didn't really have any clue about yoga, but he had the clue about what people wanted, because it was his audience that he was trying to sell the book, and he thought that that was the way forwards. And sometimes, yeah, I think being a teacher, you have to have one at the back and one at the front, one of the and then you can find them, because they are slightly difficult to navigate, because there's so much information in there.
I think there's 600 photos, are there? And 200 asana.
200 poses, yeah. But the photographs, yeah, there's so many of them. 600, that's correct.
What year was the most kind of popular light on yoga that would have really spread the book internationally? What
Probably
year was that?
70. That's the signed one, that one. And that says, "May this book be a light to you." Oh, BKS entered 1983. So these ones here, 70s, 80s, I think it was just absolutely. Well, this is a 70, it was just signed in 83, but these books are 1970s. These are all early 70s, this type. I think that's when it was at its absolute peak, right up into the 80s, mass produced. I got a couple of signed ones. That's the signatures there. If I just come zoom in, you might be able to see it. What happens is the pen ink fades over time. And that actually says, intensity in action is beauty of yoga, BKS Iyengar.
Where would you say you get most of your books from? So some of those ones that you're showing us, where would you have found those over the years?
All over the place, really. I mean, I used to look on popular internet sites. They didn't really get much, really. And then I started to put once out, and I used to email all of the big book dealers to say this is what I was after. And I barely get one call every 3 or 4 years.
Would that be for some of these rarer first
Yeah,
editions?
these first editions. But of course, they know there's a slight price increase in them. So the price increases come to me now. So I barely, hardly ever buy any these days. That's it. You know. So,
You were talking about the photographs, and obviously the first edition has the best photographs.
yeah.
Do the photographs get any better after the Shukken edition, or do they continue to be the same kind of grade?
Alan and Unwin, I think, hold the license, and they distribute it. So their first and their second editions, there wasn't hardly any difference. You couldn't really tell, to be quite honest. Exactly. I mean, it's some people prefer the picture, okay, and some people like the text, I'm more a pictures person myself rather than reams and reams of um, writing. I know a picture says 1,000 words, and in my life, that's what that means. So I'm in pictures, and I like all the big.
And going to your personal practice, would you use light on yoga to practice from?
I do, yeah. And it's one of those books you can pick up and read it. I mean, I literally only the other day I picked it up. I thought, right, okay, and I looked at Adho Mukha Svanasana. Those are listening dog pose, and at the end of each dog asana, it gives a number like 1 to 760 or something, and that is the severity of complications and um, the and dog pose. I thought would be number one, but it's not. It's number 5. I thought, that's quite strange. Now I looked at upward facing dog, but Urdhva Mukha, and that is number 1. And I've looked at this book so many times, and I still all the time pick something new out. It's one of those books, and I've looked at it back to front, upside down, from the front to the back, from the back to the front, and there's still something new all the time.
I was wondering if you have a favorite asana photo.
I think when I first started yoga, I should have quit after about 6 months, really, because I knew it all. 30 years later, I don't really know anything about it. And I think my most intriguing yoga asana is dog pose. It seems to get harder and harder. And then you look online in yoga, and it says, rest your head on the floor. Wow. Maybe next lifetime. And, people say, oh, God, you got to be really bendy to do that. But actually, when you look at dog pose, there isn't a bend in the body. The spine is straight, the legs are straight, and it's the chest opening, the shoulder work, and the back of the leg work that allows that head to go down. And it's very rare to get people to do a dog pose like the one in Line on Yoga. There are there are people, and some of our senior teachers, but yeah, it's very rare.
And how did light on yoga influence your own practice?
Well, it's a humbling book. It's very humbling, um, and it just it just shows you what is possible with the right time and effort put in. Mr. Iyengar's practice was vast. I've read it was 10 hours a day. Um, how that was split up in the day, I'm not too sure.
And your relationship with it from that first time being in Pune to now, how's your relationship with light on yoga changed?
Well, I think it's when you're a newer student, I think it is just the gross outline shape of whatever's going on, whatever shape, standing poses, inversions. But actually, it's sometimes the subtlest thing that opens the biggest doors in the end. So it looks like, oh, look, oh, he's got his heels down, or, whatever. But it's that work to do that is, as he says, is a lifetime work.
What has been your most memorable experience through collecting books?
Definitely first edition line. Some of the very small um, uh, authors, very specialist, like Donna Holloman's work, um, practicing her stuff, because she was the first sort of Western student to really um, get ahead and do all the publishing. And her work is yeah, incredible work. Um, all directly from BKS Iyengar himself. So collecting that sort of type stuff and reading that and linking it in with the Light on Yoga and Gem for Women, that was quite exciting stuff. I'm just seeing what is really out there as well.
What's your favorite copy of Light on Yoga that you've got?
Well, I've got some pristine ones. I've got a few that I don't think they've actually been opened, and there's some I open them occasionally like that. Um, but I've got a really old battered one. It looks like the dog's had it. Um, and I like that one because the pages are all bent and a bit twisted. um, I remember being in the getting in the queue to see Mr. Iyengar. I didn't know quite what I was asking him. I had about 10 questions in my mind I was going to ask him. I froze about 2 people away from going to see him. And the lady in front of me wanted her book signed. And it was quite a really good condition, like on Yoga. And he said, I don't like these ones. He says, I like the real dog-eared ones and really, because he says you showed they've been used. He said, I don't like these pristine ones. And I did remember that. So yeah, I suppose, he wants people to use them because they are, especially the hard books, they're a workbook. They are used to, it's not like a novel you read once and, it's something that you keep picking up and discovering new things. And there's a vast amount of information in there, more than the first glance.
You told me a wonderful story about hearing your name called over the tannoy in Pune. Can you share that story?
Yeah, so it was a convention where Raya he'd come to the UK, and he came across my store and was completely, he said he couldn't understand why all these light on yogas were on his bookstore. Because, they don't forget these are UK publications, and they weren't really introduced into India, which just sounds really strange because that's where it all came from. He'd obviously seen one because there was one in the library in Wimmy, and he couldn't believe it. And so I could see the look of astonishment on his face. So at the end of the convention, I just gave him a copy, and yeah, he's been bowled over. I'm still looking for. He chats to me when I go there, and he still wants the signed first edition, like on yoga, which pretty rare, really. Um, so anyway, I'd happened to be in the institute, and at the end of the morning class, the tannoy went and said, "Could Mr. Ferrabee go to down to the foyer, please?" I think, God, it had to be either passport was not money, check had bounced. It's just something a lot. It was always negative stuff that I thought of. So I went down there and I went into the library, and the family was stood there, had signed this book in by Mr. Iyengar, but it was in Marathi, and they'd signed it and they handed it to me for giving their son their first edition, right on the Ada. And it's quite an interesting book because Westerners don't buy it because it's in Marathi. Whatever that means. Means BKS Iyengar. And it's got lots of diagrams, but in Marathi, so all that comes out in English. And some stacks of diagrams. It's a fantastic book. I mean, you've got to be quite dedicated. It's not for um, students so much. But if you like a challenge on how to read something, I'll tell you this is the one.
Going back to your collection, of, you collecting books, what's the furthest that you've traveled or the most kind of unusual place you've found an Iyengar yoga book?
Um, hmm, well, e- Europe is a good place, but there again, I mean, when I found probably my best one on the internet, um, at the click of a button. I've been looking in charity shops for 25 years and have never ever found anything like it. People might say, "Oh, did you find it in a charity shop?" Well, actually, yeah, that would be lovely, but no.
Do you think people know the value of light on those light on yoga copies?
I've I don't know, I've made values up of them and I've not really had any basis to go on. I just know first edition with very low print runs have a certain value. What they're worth to me, whether what they're worth to anyone else. Um, and then they're not for everyday readers, and they're not for everyday people. First editions, when you start looking at editions like this, which are great, this is awesomes. You've probably seen those. Every every bookshop in the UK has got those in. Great, and very unusual hardback version of that one. Great. Photographs have been re-edited, and for £25, brilliant. But the real deal, um, I've been looking at years of how people value these things. It's really what they pay. There's no actually price ticket for them. Um, but the price of first editions depends on quite a lot. Obviously, the condition, the print run, however many, and the scarcity of it. Um, but they don't really fall apart. That's the good thing about them. So all these other books fall apart, but these don't. These are 60 years old, something, and yeah, they still keep going.
So you have a fantastic job of traveling around the country and around Europe and maybe further afield, selling your books at a lot of Iyengar yoga conventions. Do you always take one of the first editions for people to have a look at?
Yeah, oh yeah, I always take some of these style books. People most I've been what six conventions in the last 7 weeks, and some of the older type teachers recognize them, but no, most people just walk past them. They haven't got a clue what they are.
This is the first time I've ever seen the first editions.
And I think it's worth preserving this little slice of history. Um, and I was always keen for, because I have so much archive material, um, that actually Rimi doesn't really have so much. Mine have improved over the last 10 years or so, but everything has to be digitized, otherwise we're going to lose it all. So preservation, I think, before, because once it's gone, it's gone. You can't get it back, I'm afraid. And this is for future generations.
So if a younger practitioner picked up light on yoga today, where would you encourage them to begin?
Wow. They have to keep, they have to go to class and they have to learn from someone. And that what they learn in the class, I feel, can reflect their enthusiasm to go to the book. I think picking the book up and looking at it without a terrible amount of experience is might work, but I personally would go that route if I had a second time round. I would go to a teacher, and then they would hopefully talk about this light on yoga, and then I could go and then see what was written in light on yoga and what had been taught in the class, and you could do that way.
And in your opinion, why is it still relevant 60 years later?
Um, that precision, that intensity isn't really there in any kind of form of yoga that I've come across. Other teachers have gone off and done their own thing. That's okay. But nothing like what this is. Um, yeah.
And of all the editions in your collection, if you could only keep one, which one would it be and why?
Well, the pristine ones, I don't know. I think I'd just keep the old rough dog-eared one, to be quite honest.
Did I ask you that the one that you were talking about being dog-eared, did you have that from brand new or is it someone
Oh,
else's?
no, no. But they were only for sale for 2 years. What I was going to do, it's a bit shiny on there. I keep putting these plastic covers on because the first thing to go on these books is the covers. Because normally when you buy the first edition, it comes out like that, a bit mothy and a bit dog-eared, a bit chewed. And we put these, they're called bow dart um, covers on, and they're fantastic. You'll see that's a normal, yeah, that's what they normally look like if you're lucky. And that's my sort of favorite couple, really.
And that's a 1965.
Yeah. Have you seen this book? No, that's Body the Shrine, Yoga Thy Light. That's the front, that's the inside cover. Beautiful book. 1970s, from all about the Institute. Body the Shrine, Yoga Thy Light. Art of Yoga. That's the first edition. Beautiful poker. That's signed as well, that one. The the reprints of this are beyond not very good. Again, it's 90. If you're going to buy one of those, you got to make sure it's a 1983 edition because the photographs are. I don't know if you can. It's not the quality of the photographs is straight from the studio, basically, and then all the different editions because it's quite a popular book. Because again, it's got virtually no writing in it. It's literally Mr. Iyengar as a senior man. Because he was, I'm not quite sure how old he was when he did the loan yoga, but here he's definitely in his 60s. This book, um, the pictures are very clear. Here we go. Yeah, it's good. Love the book.
How much would you charge for the different kind of quality?
What you mean, the first edition? Well, again, as I said before, they don't particularly have a ceiling price or a low price. Sometimes if people want me to find them one, I have to charge my time and effort, because I still look, twice a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. I search in the background. I'm always doing it in the background. Um, so, you know, a rough eared one would be £1,000 and going up to whatever you want to pay, really.
What would you say as a teacher, so coming from you as a teacher, for someone picking up the book for the first time now, 60 years on from its publication, but still so relevant?
Um, yeah, it's a sort of timeless book, really, um, with very basic information in it. Um, the quality of the photographs and the quality of the poses are next to none. It's a book you can read every week, and still now I can open it and find new information about it. Um, there was also, I went to one America teacher once, and we were talking about the hand position in the standing positions. Well, when you're a new car, we're told to spread, then close, and then lay the thumb across this way. And of course, when you look in line yoga, it's all there. And it's something that you just, you just keep looking at it, looking at it, looking at it, and it keeps growing on you. Um,
I I agree. And then, just finishing up, what does light on yoga mean to you personally after all these years?
um, it's survival, really. It's that whenever there's any discrepancies or problems, uh, it's like the Haynes car manual. You just keep referring back to it all the time. Um, Pictures, yeah, but also the wording. Going to the Yoga Sutras as well. That's a very good link in there as well. But that's a different story, different day. Yeah, light on yoga is really can help you through life's ups and downs.
Yeah, I agree.
Sequences in there are uh, okay, yeah, great sequences. Bit scary, some of them on the second part of it, and probably not for everybody, but this was when had written the book, um, and all these Westerners were coming. I mean, he had to adapt his teaching to adapt who he had in front of us. So it's sort of, it didn't, he had it's slightly different his tech in his teaching than in the book. But yeah,
And then what does light on yoga mean to you?
um, well, it's like an encyclopedia. It's if I ever get stuck on things, more than likely the answer is in there.
No, that's really wonderful. So thank you so much for listening, and thank you to John for sharing your reflections and experience of light on yoga with us. If this conversation resonated with you, we would love you to share it or pass it on to someone who may enjoy it. And there are going to be more conversations in the series, so do join me again for the next episode. Thank you.